And then stage 3 is they're looking at the feedback that I got as a student from 3 of my peers. And now they're going to assess the effort their students put into that feedback. And then task 4 is the team task, where they could be doing the same task, but they now do it in a team of 4, and that team of 4 can be online or in a small setting, doesn't matter. And then what the instructor does at the end, so if I have 1,000 students, that means I have 250 teams. At the end of that process, which takes 7 days, the instructor would look at some of the team submissions to give a feel for how they've done, and then the instructor would meet them at the end of that process for 1 hour in a classroom or online or a combination of both to give them feedback on that problem throughout that week. I'll go through that process here. So this is task 1. So I've got 1,000 students. All 1,000 of them would submit that task 1. These are open-ended questions. So it doesn't really matter what discipline you're dealing with. The criteria is the foundational knowledge that you want them to learn. The task are the critical thinking skills you want them to gain. This is sort of a holistic approach to learning. And then the resources are read chapter 2. Now, in this case, they're going to read chapter 2. Because now they have a different type of challenge in front of them. They have to engage in something. So the next thing they would do, and this might happen, so the assignment's due on, say, midnight Monday. And after midnight Monday, this problem student says, well, I've got to go to a dance class on Monday night. Can I hand it in tomorrow? The system, well, you ignore that, the problem students. It's all based on what we call tough love. So that if they don't have it handed in by midnight on Monday, the system won't let them in on Monday. All right? And what I do is I give them 40% of their marks for this entire process. Each week is a mini assignment. There's no longer any more assignments I have to pile up outside my door. I've got 15 mini assignments per semester, and by 1,000 students, so it's 15,000 mini assignments. I don't look at them. They're all being assessed, and they're all being given feedback, but not by me, by their peers. So these are the 3 assignments that student number 1 submitted. If I've got 1,000 students, the student doesn't see the names of these students. They're only looking at the assignment they submitted, and they're giving the student feedback and also assessing the effort they put into it. And 40% of their marks are for the effort they put into learning. And it's really the effort that changes a C to a B. And it's also the whole strategy in terms of now how they're going to learn. This next step is where they review the feedback they got from their peers, and then again they're assessing the effort the student put into giving them feedback. So now I've done my task 1 as a student. I've looked at 3 of my peers, and the students really like looking at what their peers have done, because now the learning starts to happen over again. Now they start looking, they're looking over the shoulder of another student's work, and now but they still have to look at that and give them feedback, so they have to think about that process again and give them feedback. We've converted our entire IT program over to this process. We're now converting 2 master's programs in mathematics over to it, and we're looking at converting the entire undergraduate math program over to it as well. We've got a number of distance programs. We've got 6,000 students studying English at an open university in Thailand. And then we have, the president wants all the master's programs to be converted this way as well. So that's the 3rd stage. And the 4th stage is in a team. And the system randomly generates, and you get 4 team members. And you stay within that team for the entire term. You don't select your team. The system selects the team for the students. And teamwork is a very challenging, difficult skill for students to develop. And also the students have to assess the effort their team members are putting into this as well. And traditionally what they would do is they would give everybody on their team members top marks. All right? But at the end of the 2nd week, so the average for the first 2 weeks was 92, 93%. These teams are working great, but they weren't. Students weren't really participating. They were saying, well, I'll do it and everything else. But then at the end of the 2nd week, they realized that I'm not really getting much advantage from my other team members. And because the other team members don't know how they're being assessed, now the assessment drops down to 63%, which is, when you look at the data, it's how instructors would also assess that team effort. And it says team submission, the instructor would actually look at. So there'd be a number of team submissions, and the instructor would look at, if I've got 250 there, I might look at 20 of them to get a feel for how the process is going. And then the system will show me which teams I've looked at, which ones I haven't looked at, so the next week I'll select a different 20. Plus, I can also recognize plagiarisms within the system as well. So students who want to cheat, it's all in the system. And the system actually shows you records that could be plagiarized. And what you do is you look at those, and then if they are plagiarized, then you would automatically eliminate any marks from the person. You don't know where the original document came from, so they lose their marks too. And as soon as the students start realizing the fact that you're looking at that, the dynamic starts to control itself. So yes. Yes. The assessment for stage. Okay. Now, traditionally, if I put a group of 4 students together, now they know who each other are, so they assess their effort, right? So if 40% of my marks are are divided by 15, so let's say that I've got 10 weeks, so they're divided by 10, and so 10% of their marks they're going to get for doing this task. I'm sorry, 4% of their marks are for doing that task, okay, for the entire 100% of the marks. 2/3 of the marks are for how they're being assessed on the original submission, and the other 1/3 for original submission, 1/3 for their feedback to their peers, and then 1/3 for their team task. Okay?
The peer assess the one who they submit the assignments. Okay. Usually students give themselves best marks.
Yeah.
If I give you 5 out of 5, you give me 5 out of 5.
That's right.
Things like this.
That's right. But in the 2/3 of the mark, I don't have no idea what paper I'm assessing, what peer I'm assessing. I don't know their name. I'm looking at what they submitted. So I have no idea. So that average goes down to about 63%. Okay.
Peers are unknown.
Peers are unknown, except in the team task. Okay. Now on the team task, the average is, I'll give you 5 out of 5. At the end of the 2 weeks, that changes. It drops down to about 63% what they're giving them. That's right. Yep. Questions on this? The key to this whole thing is designing the learning task. So this final week is when, as an instructor, instead of spending 6 hours or more a week engaged in my course, I'm now spending maybe 2 hours a week looking at the team submission. And I might look at a certain percentage of those submissions, then I would use that to give my class feedback. Now what happens in my class now is that it's noisy, but it's noisy because now they're challenging me. And I want them to challenge me. And also I can challenge them. So I used to spend 2 to 3 hours a week lecturing, and then I started the class, I would say, any questions, and be silence. Partway through the class, any questions, silence. So, but now, it's a very noisy environment because the students have been engaged in something. I can see the areas they're engaged in. And I know the challenges they're having with that week's task, that week's activity. So now I can go into more detail. And when I talk about detail, lights start to go on because they've been engaged in it. The dynamics in that class start to change. And now I only need to spend an hour with them per week rather than 2 or 3 hours per week. And I know, looking at the system, who's engaged and who's not engaged. I know in the system who showed up for class or not. I don't really care. It's their peers that are caring now. What time did you want to go to? Do you want to, what time's it? Pardon me? No, I can go as long